Right, good evening, everyone. I'm very excited today. I've got a special guest with me. You may have seen him on my page recently, and he goes by the name of Black Rant. Welcome and thank you very much for joining me. How are you today?
I'm doing very well today, Martin. Thank you for having me. Feeling great right now. We have a lot of crazy things going on in the world, and I'm just happy to be on here to talk about them.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate your time as well. And I have to say, that T-shirt, I absolutely love it. You've got to get me one of them. That is absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic to see. I think
Yes.
there'll be a lot of lefties watching this, probably crying their eyes out at the moment.
They're gonna read. Yeah.
But we don't mind. No, but as you said, it's been a really odd time. We saw the sad death of George Floyd a few weeks ago. Very sad incident. And it
Mhm.
seems to sparked off something absolutely huge. We've seen with the Black Lives Matter movement. I just wanted to ask you really, what do you think about the whole situation and Black Lives Matter in particular?
It is a complicated situation.
Mm,
In America, I think, and in the time that we're in right now, I think people are starting to understand something that Black people have understood for many years, right?
mm-hmm,
Racism does exist, okay?
mm,
But as Thomas Sowell said, racism is on its deathbed.
yeah,
The only people keeping it alive are these leftists.
yeah, totally agree.
The only thing that they can do at this point, because they've lost the debate, they've lost the argument, they have no policy. All they can do is make new slaves. So the Black Lives Matter movement is not a movement for Black people. As a Black person myself, Black life matters,
Mm,
right? Black
I like
life
that.
matters.
Mm,
Black lives matter is a movement that is not organic, it's not of the people, it's what we call astroturf. And it's controlled by people that have very little interest in the actual success of the Black community.
yes.
I can expand on that, but I'll just leave it there.
Do you think it's probably stoking up racial tensions more than building bridges? Do you think possibly there was never a huge issue there before, but now it seems to be like they're making a huge issue?
Let me say this. I lived in the Midwest. I've lived in the South. And I understand both sides of this argument from the perspective of the good old boys who go and they hunt and they fish and they whatever.
Yeah.
They can run a trot line. And I also understand it as a Black man in America who's lived in inner cities, who's been poor.
Yes.
These good old boys in the South and in the Midwest, generally they don't like culture. They don't like the rap culture,
Mm,
but that's because it's been taken over and hijacked
yeah.
and hijacked by the six major corporations that run the prisons. They don't like that culture, but they have nothing against Black people in general. But they're the type of people who, if you violate, they don't care who you are, what
No.
color you are. When they see videos of a group of Black teenagers or a group of Black men assaulting women,
Mm,
assaulting white men, when they see this, and then the rhetoric coming out of these people is a
yeah.
politically engaged rhetoric, they have no choice.
Mm,
They have no choice but to get on a defensive posture. And what you're going to see is people are going to get so fed up that
yeah.
racial epithets are going to come out of their mouths, because why not?
Yeah.
If I'm going to be called something all day, why not just do it too?
Mm,
On my page, I like to present a message that let's not sink to their level,
yes.
because all that is going to do is give the left footage of people to show and say, look at all these white racists.
Mm,
That's why I say don't engage that way.
no.
But I totally understand why people would do that. When it's okay for Black people to call someone a cracker and
Mm,
call someone white trash and call somebody all types of racial names against white people,
mm. Well, it's odd.
you
We get called things like gammon over here and all sorts, and it's always the left as
What
well.
do you get called? What do you guys
We
get
get
called?
called gammon. Yeah,
I love learning all the terms that you guys have over there.
yeah. Apparently that's okay for them to call us that, but it's due to the
Yeah.
colour of our skin. But the left are like that. They get very, very nasty as well. Now, after about a week or so after the terrible death of George Floyd,
Mhm.
a big movement started in the UK, really, the BLM movement, and they started targeting statues down, like 300-year-old statues that were like from past slave traders and things. I mean, do you think that's acceptable to do, like ripping down our culture? I suppose, whether right or wrong, do you believe that's the way forward?
I think it's extremely hypocritical, but I also think that it's a tactic.
Mm.
As we all know, that these people are cultural Marxists.
Yeah,
They want complete and utter destruction, revolution, make and remake, to struggle against their oppressors consistently until they have the utopia that they desire, correct?
yes,
So not only is it hypocrisy, but it's also a tactic.
mm.
And there was a wonderful podcast with Joe Rogan. He had Brett Weinstein or Eric Weinstein's brother, I think his name is Brett, on the podcast. And he was explaining that if you look at what these movements are doing in terms of, well, what do they want? What are their motivation?
Yeah.
If you look at it like that, it will be utterly confusing and it will enrage you. If you look at it as a military tactic, if you look at it as a political tactic, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
So why are they pulling down statues? Why are they pulling down statues? They want people, they want a population so unaware of history, so unaware of culture, that they can change culture every week. They can change culture every day.
Yeah.
They can just come up with new rules whenever they feel like 1984.
Exactly.
Oh, this now.
Exactly. And this is the sort of thing we are facing. You're quite right. And if we don't remember our history, then we're doomed to repeat it and make the same mistakes of the past. And yes, we have these statues, and it doesn't mean we agree with them, but I don't see why they just can't put a plaque next to it explaining what bad things this guy did, just to remind us that we've moved on a long way since there. I mean, the UK did more than any country to abolish slavery back in the 1800s. Our first national debt was incurred to the tune of like 20 million pounds in today's money to abolish this sort of thing. So we need to look back and remember how far we've come forward. Really,
all I've ever heard from any black person I've known from the UK is how much less racist the UK is than America, right? So why all of a sudden is this bubbling up here? I'll tell you why. It's culture. These are culture wars. And like I said, we're dealing with cultural Marxists. We have a generation, my generation, millennials, that are probably one of the least informed and educated generations of all time, but also one of the more technologically inundated generations of all times. Now, the generation that comes after us is even more so technologically inundated. They have social media, but they don't actually have a good education system. All they have is the culture that's been spoon-fed to them from the major corporations, from the major stars, the major movie stars, the major music stars. These are their influences. So when you have a bunch of white kids out there protesting, when you have a bunch of kids that don't know anything about slavery, they don't even know what dates things happened or when things occurred. They just know that their favorite rapper or their favorite somebody told them that this is what we're going to do and it's just. And then they're already in opposition to an older generation. They're already in opposition to their parents or their parents' parents because they think, oh, you're out of date. You don't know how to use Facebook. Or whatever. That's the excuse. So it's a culture war, and it's a generational culture war that they're using against us. I see 18-year-old kids out there don't even know what planet they're on, barely woken up to themselves as an individual. And they're being told that you are morally just and morally correct to commit acts of violence because it's 2020. It's 2020. What does that mean?
It's completely bizarre. And we see a lot of the same issues here as well. And like you said, it is a culture war. There's no doubt about that. But we've got a huge problem with the mainstream media in the United Kingdom. We've got all these outlets like the BBC you may have heard of, a lot of the other terrestrial
Yeah,
channels.
yeah,
Yeah, we call them the Biased Broadcasting Corporation because
yep.
basically it doesn't matter what Trump does or what even our government does. There's attack, always negative. He can't do anything right, you know. And it also happens to be the election year. But you know, it was a huge shock. I believe it was a shockwave across the whole globe when Trump thankfully got elected, and they're throwing everything at it now to try and stop him getting re-elected. What's your experience of the mainstream media in the US?
My experience of the mainstream, and I'm talking for many different groups that I talk to, represent. I have black friends, I have white friends, I have libertarian friends, I have Republican friends, I have Democrat friends, I have whatever. My experience of the mainstream media in America is such that it is so discredited, it is so biased that anyone who represents or presents material that comes from these hardened, biased sources is automatically delegitimized, correct? They're delegitimized when they present it in an open public forum, right? Amongst people of different, political beliefs and backgrounds. However, it is cult-like material for people within their own groups and their own sections.
Yes.
So CNN is obviously the worst. We know what Fox News is. We know that Fox News presents information in a way that the mainstream media.
Yeah.
But people like Tucker Carlson on Fox News are some of the most truthful people that you'll ever see in terms of pointing out the actual problems and the actual facts. Now, in regards to their coverage of Trump, Trump is, and I'll say this for most people, you might have an audience where most of your audience some of your audience may not like Trump, right? Fine, good. I understand that. I understand why you don't like Trump. He's an asshole. But that's exactly what we need right now.
Yeah.
You need someone who's going to be able to agitate the left to such an extent where their hypocrisy becomes so apparent to everyone.
Yeah.
Right? If you call someone a racist all day, no matter what they do, it's one form of mind control for people who are easily susceptible to mind control.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a racist. But when you call someone a racist and there's no evidence behind it, you're just calling them that because they're white and because they're rich and for whatever reason. And then Trump continues to do things that build success and build wealth and build up the power structure of Western organizations. It contradicts it. Just him being there is a contradiction to their message, and it wakes more people up every single day. The problem is with the black community, the problem is with many leftists, they've been in a fanciful sleep. Obama was my best friend. Everything was right with the world because we nominated a black guy. You know why they nominated a black guy? Because George W. Bush was the most incompetent president. Everybody, black, white, Jew, Gentile, green, yellow, whatever you were, Republican, Democrat, was ready to revolt.
Yeah, and that's what we saw.
So they put everybody to sleep, and they said, "Look at the world is beautiful again. Everything's great." I don't know any one single person who supported Obama that actually understood his policies, actually understood anything he did while he was in office. He just, he just danced.
Past the 8 years.
He's so cool.
No.
And now, because of that, because of his total ineptitude while he was in office, even black kids with a little bit more awareness are like, who cares what Obama says now? Who cares what he says? Who cares what he presents? You lost.
Yeah. Well, we've got people like Tony Blair that like to rear their ugly heads up now and again to try and tell us what we should be doing and how we've gone wrong. But would you say
we can't get into Tony Blair on Facebook? We got to go to a separate, our little channel on the side, our Discord chats to have little. We got to go over there to have.
We'll be in big trouble if we put our views of him across. He's
What
not
a
very
piece of
popular,
work
I
that
can
guy.
tell you. He hasn't been. He caused a lot of damage to the United Kingdom in his time there. He opened the doors up to mass immigration that's completely overwhelmed our country and infrastructure, you know, and
Hmm.
done a lot of cultural damage. So he's no one's real friend. But in your own in your own circle of friends, is Trump popular or is it still kind of divided, depending how they? I depends what they read, I suppose.
Well, you know what? I'm lucky. I'm very lucky because in my younger years, I went. I made it a point to get to know and understand people with who were interested in expanding their consciousness.
Mm,
That doesn't mean doing drugs. That just means meditating and trying to be better, trying to be better people. And
yeah,
I've been able to maintain some of those relationships. And the thing about being trying to be a better person is you try to understand what's going on in the world and the way the world works.
yeah,
I know plenty of people who have sat there, like I said, for the 8 years of Obama, totally content, thinking that they did their job, and if we just keep going in this direction, it'll just be some utopia.
mm,
But I also have a lot of friends who looked at the world. They went out, they made money, they started their own businesses, they started to engage with life. They are leaders in their own way, and amongst that group of people,
yeah.
they're Trump supporters 100%.
Wow.
Amongst the secondary ring of people that I know, they're on the fence because they see the absolute hypocrisy of the left. And I will
Mm,
say this because this is the most important point. They say Black Lives Matter. They say they want to save lives.
mm,
But who did the policies that they implemented for COVID-19 hurt the most?
mm.
Poor people and Black people and poor Hispanic people. When they
Wow.
say I'm going to charge you $1,000 if you don't wear a mask, who are they forcing into submission?
Mm,
People who don't have the economic means to be free.
exactly.
When they say tear down your city, burning buildings is a justifiable type of protest, who are they hurting the most?
Yeah.
When they say defund the police, they're not hurting the guys who live in the suburbs with the big 500, 600, $700,000 houses
Big
who can
walls.
afford their own private security by
Mm,
banding together with their neighbors and paying higher tax rates for better police. They're not hurting those guys.
no.
They're hurting their very own constituency.
Yeah. Exactly.
The more people wake up to that fact, the less support that they will have.
Yeah.
And the problem is, the sad part about it is, you will never, ever be able to reach a certain group of people
Nope.
who are so desperately in fear, so desperately uneducated, so
Tribal.
tribal.
Mm,
And that's what hurts my heart as a Black man.
mm,
I have to sit there and watch people who are very, very closely genetically related to me, sure, whatever. I have
mm.
to see people that look like me buy into a bunch of lies
Sad.
and say Trump is racist, and people just believe it just because, well, he's a white guy, he
Mm,
didn't like Obama,
mm,
and he's a white guy, he didn't like Obama,
no.
and he's catering to the. Of course, Trump uses dog whistles to get people who may be, yeah,
Oh
slightly
yes.
racist to
Mm,
support him.
mm,
It's called mass politics. But
yeah.
when he uses the dog whistles to get people who are slightly racist to come over to his team, and then he brings Black people up and says, "Look at this wonderful Black person. Look at this wonderful Black person.
Mm,
Look at this wonderful Black person. Look at this wonderful. These people are amazing." What does that do to the people who are slightly racist?
mm,
It wakes them up.
yeah. Exactly.
I'm
No.
sorry, I'm talking, I'm rambling.
No, no,
Oh my
you
god.
carry on. It's very interesting to hear that. Yeah, you mentioned about COVID actually. How's that affected things in the US?
Well, we still see the same fear and the same anxiety being pushed,
Mm,
and I it's understandable. Older people are still concerned about COVID and coronavirus. They're
mm,
still concerned about it, which I totally understand.
yeah.
Totally makes sense. But these people are still using these policies
Mm,
to ruin whole swaths of people. Like, for example, another thing, schools are closed.
yeah.
You wonder why you see so many teenagers out there causing problems, looting,
Yeah,
breaking cars? The schools are shut down. Who
yeah,
does that hurt the most?
it's the same here.
Not rich people, not wealthy people, not
Mm,
middle class people who can afford to stay home or work from home
no.
or take care of their kids or pay for no, no, no. Who does that hurt the most?
Exactly, and it's the same here because we got the left teachers, all our teachers basically they brainwash. We got a terrible problem with indoctrination of our kids. They're very far left. A lot of the teachers here, and they of course are trying to not reopen schools as long as possible, which is concerning. But
They want a whole new generation of hoodlums.
they do, and this is that cultural Marxism again, though, that you speak of. It's seeped into schools. All this politically correct stuff. They're literally indoctrinating our kids. I guess, have you seen it in the US too?
I have seen it in the US, and I'll say this. I, at one point in time, thought about being a teacher because, I'm actually really good with kids. And so, but I abandoned it very early because I not only saw what was going on, but I also had friends who are already teachers. And what they do is there's how they have a military industrial complex.
Yeah.
Well, there's an education industrial complex. There's these groups that lobby for more funds to go to more training to teachers.
Wow.
But who's doing the training of the teachers? A lot of this is cloak and dagger lobbyist groups, think tanks that are globalists,
Yeah.
and they use a left-leaning policy and procedure because they know that works the best on these types of people. So you have a bunch of people, and me too. I'm not. I didn't do well enough in high school because I wasn't paying enough attention because of our culture. Doesn't mean I'm not smart, but teaching tends to attract people who it tends to grab that group who is
Yeah.
more touchy-feely or wants to help, well-meaning people that may not have done the best in high school. Because if you did really well in math and science in high school, odds are you're probably not going to be a teacher until later on in your life, or you're going to be a college teacher.
Right.
And then what they do is they set up all these goodies for teachers. Even though teachers are underpaid, they set up all these goodies for teachers, all these wonderful trips that they'll pay for so they can teach you how to teach math, teach you how to teach science, teach you how to teach education and reading, and but they inject racism into it. They inject well, we have to be sensitive. They inject sensitivity training into it. So what you have is a whole bunch of indoctrinated teachers who've been spoiled and put on a pedestal, being told that you guys are so amazing, you guys are going to change the future, and you can cut the ears of the children. But it's kind of a bunch of people that are easily swayed by the goodie, and they're well-meaning at the same time. So a lot of them think that they are the bee's knees doing the Lord's work. But who's the Lord? The government.
Their intentions are well-meaning, but obviously they are literally indoctrinating our kids, and it is a really big problem, and it's something that has to be stamped out because they're bringing up this new generation though that's got exactly zero respect to any of our history or culture or anything. They just want to completely dismiss it. But we've got like a thing, a big diversity push, what they call it in this country as well. I mean, if you apply for jobs or anything, they'll ask you basically your makeup, with your gay or whatever, and it seems to be in some places, like even the BBC, they will only employ people if they've been from a BAME background. They just seem to be so intent on having like diversity rather than the best person getting the job. They just want to tick these boxes. Is that something you've seen in the United States?
Of course. And in the United States, it's called intersectionalism.
Right.
And I think it's probably one of the worst inventions ever. So intersectionalism, for people who may not know, people may know, is if I'm a black person and I have a problem or a struggle or something like that, my problems and struggles might intersect with someone of a different quote unquote makeup or identity structure. But all that does is create more identity-based politics, where if I'm black, then I'm obviously on the same page with someone who's gay, or I'm obviously on the same page with someone who's Native American. However, that's not true. That's
Mm,
absolutely false.
yeah.
Black people have their own agenda that is being pushed to the side once again
Mm,
because these people never cared about black people. They just want to push forward an agenda
mm,
that is completely about isolation, destroying the family,
yeah.
destroying the home so that you feel like you're alone in your own life. You
Yeah.
don't have any friends, and the only communication that you have is like Winston with his telescreen in his room.
Mm,
That's how they want people. That's why they create so many different groups
yeah.
over and over again. And then they say, this group is your group. Your group is,
Mm.
and these groups have the same fight.
One
The
deep
only group
genders.
that are is the white male.
Mm,
Go fancy that.
mm. That's what they're doing. They're splitting things down. They're trying to undermine the family unit. You're quite right. They just want to put everything into boxes all the time because I suppose if you're divided, then you're easier to control. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not good, really. Like I said, if you're applying for a job, it should be the best candidate should get the job, not just for any other reason, like if you're gay or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
And this is the sort of problem that we have. But no, well, I just want to thank you very much for joining me. And
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you really, the final question really is what your hopes are for the future and the ways you may see things pan out over the next year or so.
I think what's going to happen in the next year is going to be both exciting. It's optimistic, but there's also a lot of things in the future that are going to pull at our heartstrings of
Mm,
compassion and make us a little sad because unfortunately in this day and age, in the age of information, and we're in an information war, we're in a
yes.
cultural war, you have your own right to make that decision. No one can take you and put you in chains and make you a slave just because anymore. You have to agree to that. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to willingly agree to that, like they're doing in Chaz or Chop, like they're calling it now. People are going to agree to live in a slum
Yeah.
where they have no rights because they're going to believe that it's actually freedom.
Mm,
Freedom is slavery, right? George Orwell, right?
again, yeah.
People are going to actually believe that. But I'm positive and I'm hopeful because just like in World War II,
Mm,
just like when Great Britain was fighting against the Nazis, just when Great Britain lost their allies in France because of some shady things that they
yeah.
were doing over there, just because of all that, just like in those times,
Mm,
great leaders are going to come about. Winston
exactly.
Churchill are going to come about. And
Mm,
people are going to pull together stronger than ever because we know
mm,
that fundamentally our countries are linked in a special relationship that is based
absolutely.
upon Judeo-Christian values.
Exactly.
And those things are what are going to give us the roadmap forward to creating new systems where we live and breathe and move into space and move into new frontiers. New technology is going to be created. More
Yeah.
wealth is going to be created. We're going to be going into one of the best centuries that mankind has ever seen. And unfortunately, because we have such a strong polarization this way,
Yeah.
there's also going to be people who fall by the wayside that way.
There
But
are.
it's a choice.
No, that is you're truly inspirational. That's a fantastic message. Like I said, a number of people really enjoyed the video that of yours that I posted on my page, and I'm sure it gave people a huge lift to think there are more of us. The silent majority are bigger. So I just want to thank you again. Thank you very much for your time. And
No, thank you.
I
Thank you.
asked people. I put the link down in the bottom of the post to follow you. The Black Rant is your page, isn't it?
Black Rant,
Um,
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Yes.
the whole shebang. Yeah.
The whole
So
shebang. YouTube.
yeah. So if you want to hear that angelic voice with these messages to continue inspiring us, please, I urge people to follow. So I want to thank you very much again, and hopefully we'll get to catch up in the not too distant future.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very
Yes.
much, and take care.
Thank you very much, sir.